around for 2.5 years now. We grew it from 3 students up to over 80 students now, and it continues to grow. And what we kind of do is mix a lot of entrepreneurship in the course, along with real market stuff. Today we're talking about 5-alarm blazers and property taxes going up in Toronto, and supply and demand, how we're going to get a lot of houses coming online, which is going to crush the price of houses, and people are going to lose a lot of money and have to maybe go the insurance route and burn their house down. We're not promoting arson here, but the kids get a lot of idea of how the system's working. And I guess Toronto just announced yesterday on Friday that they may have to raise property taxes by 47% in Toronto alone, and fire police officers and shut down subways. So we really get into a lot of the business side of it, on top of covering the companies. And Mr. Marchand has joined us here, so I'll introduce him in a minute here. So one of the companies that we've been covering for the last year in the class has been Medicenna. And I think since, I'll just bring this up for 1 second so that I can show here. If I bring up, come back here for a minute, I'm going to show you, this is the students' gains for our class, and I'll just put it up here now. So far, so the students develop portfolios, and we give them $100,000 every when they start, and they built their portfolios on November the 29th of last year. And you can see for the first time in the history of 2.5 years, I just got passed by a student. I was up to 418,000, starting with 100 in November the 29th. These are real portfolios in the sense that they actually pick the stocks, and it's not real money in the 100,000, but they actually pick the stock, and they got to actually make their decisions every week on where they want to be. So with the serious market crash that's occurred, you can see that not one of the students is negative 100 since November the 29th, and some of them are now at 462,000 in 5 months of being in the stock competition. So, and these students range in grades from grade 7 up to grade 12. So they're pretty smart. They'd actually all be on the front of Wall Street Journal right now with returns like this in the market. They do hold a lot of Medicenna in their books, so that's obviously been a very big winner. I know a lot of people on the call are also shareholders of Medicenna, so they've all been pretty happy by what's gone on. And we've been a big follower of this company for a year in the classroom, so the kids have really enjoyed watching this company grow up. And we give credit to Elizabeth and Fahar for running the company and making it what it is today. And the kids are pretty excited. So I guess what I'll do is I think the best thing is for Dr. Marchand to kind of speak about Medicenna first. And Elizabeth, you can make your comments too. I've got the chart over here so you can see it. You don't have to do any hard work. You can tell me where you want to be. I've got lots of other stuff up there like Santa Fu takeover, Gilead takeover, research reports, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to comment on any of that, you can. And just kind of give an idea of where Medicenna is going. We've covered a bit here in the class this morning by showing the financials that were released and some of the milestones that you've got coming up, including U.S. listing. So they understand exchanges now. They understand a lot of different stuff. So you can take it away, Dr. Marchand, and introduce yourself. I'll get this back up so you got it. There you go.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me fine. And really an honor to be able to join with your group, and a delight to talk to students who are so excited and hoping that you will be recruiting some of those guys into your company. They obviously are doing a great job managing money. So, just give you a bit of background about myself. I myself have had education in 4 different continents, and until I went to high school, I had, been to 3 different countries to be educated. So I've been, it's really a mixed up education system that I had until I was 18 or so. So after my high school education, I joined and got my bachelor's degree in biochemistry and pharmacology. And this was at the university in Birmingham. And then after that, did a master's in biotechnology at sort of switched my field and focused in the Department of Chemical Engineering. So suddenly I had a mixed group sort of scientific background, which was mixture of science, biochemistry, and pharmacology, but at the same time, chemical engineering as well. And then eventually came to Canada and did my PhD in chemical engineering at the School of Chemical Engineering here in London, Ontario. Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
So that was my education. After my PhD, I just decided to, there was a biotech research institute that had just opened in Montreal. And I joined that institute in 1986 and spent a couple of years there and then moved to Edmonton, Alberta and continued to work there at the Alberta Research Council, which had a big manufacturing plant so that we had clients coming in from all over the world and us sort of developing for them drugs and therapeutics and vaccines and so on, and doing research into how we could commercialize those projects. And it was great because now I had an engineering background, so I could actually go to a manufacturing plant and operate those big, huge tanks. And some of these tanks were, 3 stories high or 4 stories high. So these huge, massive tanks where you make your drugs and stuff like that. So that was very exciting. And eventually, I found myself, and my wife was working with me as well in the same organization. And we, consistently between my wife and myself, either she was the manager of the year or I was manager of the year. So we were performing really well. And my boss eventually came one day and sort of handed me an envelope and said, Fahar, congratulations, you did a great job this year. And he had given me a check, and I was, really happy that I got a bonus for my performance. And, after he left, I opened the check, the envelope, and it was a check for $100. And I realized my wife also got the check for $100. And I said, well, that's great. We are both top performers, so it's good to know that. The next day I went to work and I found that everybody in the company had a $100 check, irrespective of them performing or not. And I said, well, that doesn't look too good. Why am I working so hard for this organization that doesn't value and give the same value to others who had more experience than I was or I had, and they were not performing? And that sort of made me think that maybe I should start my own company. And I went to the boss and I said, you know what, I'm starting my own consulting business and I will leave the company. And I said, I'm quitting. So he said, that's fine, but can I hire you back as a consultant? And I said, sure, you'll be my first client. And basically he became, my first client. And suddenly I was earning more than I was earning when I was an employee. And he said, Fahar, don't move your office or desk or anything. You stay here, and this is your office. You can work from here. And I said, great. So that's how I got started. I started consulting for obviously the Alberta Research Council, but I also was consulting for companies like Monsanto and Biogen and Dow Elanco and stuff like that. So it was giving me a lot of experience. And 2 years later, in 1994, there was a big oil crash in Alberta and the government decided to cut more jobs. And my wife basically said, shall I quit as well? And I said, sure, why don't you quit? And she quit and she got a 2-year contract to consult for them as well. So that's how we started. Our first, venture was to start a consulting business. And while we were consulting, we realized that there was a huge need for manufacturing of these therapeutics. And we then started and built our very first biotech company. And this was right in Edmonton at the research park. And we bought some land that the government gave us for $1 a year. And it was a 5-acre plot of land that nobody was using. And at the same time, there was a biotech company in Santa Monica that was shutting down. And using the severance package that my wife had, we basically used that money to buy that whole facility for $90,000. And with that $90,000, we moved the whole plant on a truck all the way from Santa Monica in California all the way to Edmonton, Alberta, and started to build our facility. And because we had our engineering background, it was great because we could build this facility ourselves and get some help. And we built that company into the fastest growing company in Alberta. It was the fourth fastest growing company in Alberta. We were profitable from day one. And after about 7 years, we sold the whole company to a British biotech for $90 million. So that was, our investment was only 90,000 and we sold it for 90 million after 90 months. So that was really a great outcome. And we then decided to move to Vancouver. Our son wanted to be in and study at UBC. So we moved to Vancouver, and that's where I became a CEO of another company. It was called Therapeutics. It had a drug for treating prostate cancer and enlarged prostates, but it was still very early. They just had data that showed it worked in mice. And I said I took that program on, became the CEO, raised money. The company was already publicly listed. And we built the company and did multiple clinical trials and tested the drug in humans. And it did work extremely well. And at the same time, I was not happy because I said, well, this company has got only one molecule. It has only one product. If it fails, the company is going to go down. So we might as well look for another product. And at that time, I brought in another product into the company, was for treating brain cancer. So now we had two projects, one for prostate cancer and one for brain cancer. And in 2010, we had a very big private equity company called Warburg Pincus. Warburg Pincus is a New York-based company that had $15 billion. And they decided to become the largest shareholder in this company. And they moved the company to San Diego. So this is where I decided to leave because I did not want to relocate, wanted to stay close to my family in Vancouver. But they decided to just focus on prostate cancer. So I started Medicenna then, incorporated Medicenna in 2011. And since they were not making progress with that brain tumor program, I went back to them and I said, well, if you're not doing anything with it, why don't I buy this asset from you? So I bought this drug, and we call it MDNA55 now, into Medicenna. And here we are. So we've basically took this drug from my previous company and took it all the way to this completion of phase 2B clinical trial. And here we are with a very successful company with very promising data for a cancer which has been a huge challenge. And it's not, it's been 40 years since anything that has made any improvement in this patient's life. So very, really proud that as a small company, we took a program from scratch and built it into this fantastic drug that we're really excited about. So I see that there's some questions out there, or
yeah, we'll have one of the things that I think. Do you want to just go through a little bit of Medicenna first, and then we can
Yes.
maybe get into some of the students' questions?
Sure.
And you can tell me where you'd like to. You
Yes.
don't have to do a thorough, but you can sort of. We have
So
over 100 some odd people in the call, so
Correct.
yeah.
So this is a good start. I think the first slide you showed was on what our key milestones are coming up. So I talked to you about this drug for brain cancer, and this is our drug, which is the most advanced. It has this fast track designation, orphan drug designation. We finished our phase 2 clinical trial. Our next step is, of course, to have what we call the end of phase 2 meeting with the FDA. And this is a major milestone for the company because that will help us determine as to what the path forward is for MDNA55 and how quickly can it enter the marketplace and if we need to do any further development. So the data look very compelling and we're hoping for a positive meeting with the FDA. And this is expected in the third quarter. So this is what we have. And I think I should show you how this drug works. So if you look at that MRI images that you had, here is a good example. So this is the drug you can see on your slides. These are data from patients. Actually, these patients, go to Facebook and they put their brain tumor images on Facebook. So if you look at the left, you have this red outline around this MRI image. That white spot that you see, this large white area, is the tumor. And that tumor would continue to grow and eventually result in the patient eventually dying because this is a very aggressive tumor. It's called glioblastoma. And it, over the past 40 years, you haven't been able to treat these patients. It's difficult to remove the tumor by surgery because you could harm healthy brain as well. And you can see that after treating the patient just once with this drug, you can see on the right-hand side how small the tumor becomes. And if you go again more towards the right, you can continue to see the tumor shrinking and then eventually the tumors disappear. So this is something that's really, fantastic. And you can see another example of a patient on the extreme right. You can see the tumor quite large, and then eventually with one treatment, the tumor is nearly disappeared. In fact, this patient is now tumor-free as well. And it's incredible that this patient continues to run marathons and sort of raise money for research in brain cancer. So this is what is quite exciting. And what we've got is really a drug which is very unique. It's sort of a drug that is designed to target the tumor. So I'll just go back a little bit here. So just give you a little bit of background, okay? So the challenge with brain cancer has been has been programmed to take an injection by IV or take chemotherapy drugs or have the brain radiated by X-rays and so on and so forth. And when we started this company, we had to change the paradigm because we knew that for 40 years, the old-fashioned way of taking a pill and injecting a drug by IV or radiating your brain with X-rays is not helping these patients. So we decided to inject the drug directly in the brain tumor itself. So that was very important because this was something dramatic. We say, the tumor in the brain, by the time the patient passes away, the tumor is about 80 grams in size. And a patient is normally 80 kilos in weight. So here you have a tumor which is only 0.1% of your body weight. And 99.9% of the body weight has no tumor. Why would you expose your whole 99.9% of your body with drugs where the tumor is only representing 0.1% of your body? So why don't we just inject the drug where it is needed? And this is where it needed. It needed it in the brain. So that's what we did, was we first and foremost inject the drug in the brain so we can bypass what we call this blood-brain barrier, okay? Second thing we found what people were doing was these chemotherapies, etc., are not targeted. They end up damaging everything. They hurt your body, your immune system, they hurt your kidneys, your liver, etc. So it's not something that's safe. And therefore, we had a drug which was very targeted. So you can see this image here, which is a cartoon. On the left-hand side, there's sort of a diamond-shaped structure, which is a molecule that essentially is necessary for tumor cells to grow fast. Okay, so it actually stimulates tumor growth. Okay, so the scientists came up with a good idea. They said, well, you know what? we will take this food, which the tumor really wants to use for it to grow, but instead we will take the food and we'll attach to it or link it with a very powerful toxin or a poison that's going to kill the tumor. So what happens is essentially we've tricked the cancer to eat the food, but at the same time deliver the toxin that's going to kill the tumor. So this was very important because we said we needed something which is very targeted. And we found that this drug binds to this biomarker. It's called the interleukin-4 receptor. It's only found on tumor cells. It's not found in healthy brain. So this way, you are not concerned about this drug having a bad effect on healthy brain. So it would not have any toxicity. So that's what was very unique about this drug. We were delivering the drug directly in the tumor. It's one-time administration. It targets the tumor because it has this biomarker. And the third thing we found was the tumor has a shield around it. And it sort of hides the tumor from our immune system. And this drug targets the shield as well as the tumor as well at the same time. So just give you an example of an aircraft. It's sort of a warplane known as the B-52 bomber. It's an aircraft that can fly in the sky and your radar cannot detect it. And the reason it's able to do so is because it's got on the surface of the aircraft, it's got some coatings that hides the aircraft from radar. And the same thing happens with brain cancer. It's got a shield that hides the tumor from our immune system. And this is what our drug does. It destroys the shield around the tumor and then also destroys the tumor at the same time. So this way, it's a two-way approach. We are targeting and destroying the cancer, but exposing the tumor to the immune system so the immune system can now attack and kill the tumor that our drug could not kill. So that is very unique. So it's very different from what everybody did. So especially when you're starting a new program, a new company, you need to think about, are you going to be doing more of the same, or are you going to change the treatment paradigm and take a bold move to see if your approach is going to be better than what's been used all the time? So that's basically what we have with the drug and the key milestones about the company. And of course, we have another program as well. We can talk about it, but it's up to you, James. How do you want to proceed?
Yeah, I think maybe you talk a little bit about IL-2 and where the excitement is, because we've been following some of these other takeovers. In fact, that's some of the ways that we've made our sort of our comparisons, like Neoleukin, which is actually an IL-2, and Sanofi with the big takeover. And maybe you can talk a little bit about IL-2, and then we can get into some questions.
Sure, for sure. So
that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so this is, the brain tumor program, but as I said, it's never good to have just one molecule and one product and dependent only on one product. You want to have additional products, and this is a molecule which we call MDN19. It's a different molecule. It's another interleukin. It's called IL-2, interleukin-2, and we licensed this from a really smart scientist working at Stanford University. So he created this molecule, and it's very unique because what it does is this molecule, instead of attacking the cancer, it stimulates our immune system. And it stimulates our immune system in such a way that it will only stimulate the immune system where it's going to instruct the immune system to attack the cancer. And although this molecule has been around for about 20 years and it's already been in the marketplace, this drug is commercially available. It's called Proleukin. But the problem with this Proleukin molecule is that this molecule has a lot of toxicity. It potentially can cause death. Patients can die with this drug. So patients are still administered this drug, especially who are at end stage. But you can only treat these patients if they are in the hospital in an intensive care unit because of the toxicity of the drug. And therefore, it's not being used very frequently, and has not become a big multi-billion-dollar product. So the scientists at Stanford, what they did was they engineered it. So they used an approach where they could conduct some evolutionary design of the molecule by some minor changes of the molecule in such a way that suddenly the molecule is very safe. It's a safe molecule, so you can treat the patients without having to put them in intensive care. And second was that the molecule that was Proleukin that was administered in the hospital, once you inject the drug, it would get cleared by the kidneys so quickly that you have to treat the patient every 8 hours for 2 weeks in an intensive care setting. So it was very difficult to administer. So what we did at Medicenna was we took this molecule from Stanford scientists. We then modified it further to make it even safer, but also we engineered it so that now this molecule can be administered once every 2 weeks or once every 3 weeks, and the patient can go home after treatment, and therefore they don't have to be in hospital. So this is really exciting. So if you look at, just if you go to the next slide, what you will find is a image of a graph on the right-hand side of our competitor. So this competitor is called Nektar Therapeutics. They've got a drug called NKTR-214, and they've got a molecule, and they did a large partnering deal with a big pharma called Bristol Myers Squibb, where Bristol Myers Squibb paid them $3.6 billion for this drug. So billion with a B, okay? And what you find is that this particular drug, when they tested it in mice with this particular colon cancer, they find that these tumors, after they stop treating, if you look at the right at the bottom, you can see the tumor shrink, and then eventually when they stop treatment after day 21, the tumor starts to grow back up again. Okay. With Medicenna, we repeated the same experiment with our drug. And what we found is that those blue dots that you see, this is where the drug has basically cured these mice of the tumors completely. And you can see the tumor never coming back again. And what is really exciting is that we kept on injecting tumors at different times. All the time, we would keep on injecting more and more tumor, and we see the tumor never comes back. It's as though we have vaccinated these mice against the cancer, and the cancer can never come back because we have programmed the immune system. So every time the cancer comes back, the immune system is awakened and attacks the tumor, and the tumor never comes back. And you can see the tumors don't come back for, we've kept it going, this experiment, for nearly 200 days. Just to give you an idea, 1 day in a mouse life is equivalent to 47 days in a human, okay? So you can see the impact of this drug, whereas if you look at our competitor, by day 30, the tumor is beginning to grow, and despite the fact that it's not as good as our drug, Bristol Myers did a $3.6 billion transaction with Nektar. So we think we've got a much better drug. And the second drug that I should talk to you about is a company called Synthorx. So Synthorx also did something very similar to Nektar's drug in terms of increasing the molecule's ability to stay in the bloodstream for a longer time period. And last year in December, Sanofi came in and looked at the data, and they decided to buy Synthorx for $2.5 billion. Now we've got a number of data that we also compare our drug with Synthorx's drug, and generally we find that our drug, MDNA19, is much better than this molecule called Thor 707, which is a Synthorx drug, which got bought for $2.5 billion. Okay, so we are really excited about our drug, and we will be at the same place as Synthorx in about a year from now, a year and a half. So sometime towards the sort of second half of next year, we should have the same data as Synthorx did. But what is very interesting is that when Sanofi was buying Synthorx, Sanofi was competing with three other big pharma companies because they all wanted an IL-2. They all wanted Synthorx's compound. And we are pretty sure that those same three companies that were competing with Sanofi are also going to be interested when our drug is ready next year for human clinical trials. So really excited about the potential for our own IL-2 here as well. Okay.
I'll step in for that. It's interesting also to note, and the students have seen this, that Medicenna has spent 5.86 million on R&D for fiscal 2020,
Yes.
And I can bring this down so people can see this. Bristol Myers, which we were just talking about, spent 4.9 billion in R&D for 2016 alone. Shocking to see what you've done as an entrepreneur with such a small amount, and obviously they have many other drugs, as you can see.
Yes.
But the money that is spent is enormous.
Yes, and I think we've taken a deliberate approach. It's a very strategic in the sense that we decided in saying, instead of investing our money in brick and mortar and buying, buildings and expensive equipment and spend a whole bunch of money in capital equipment and hire a whole bunch of manpower, we decided to have a small team of really top-notch experts within the company and contract and sort of hire top-notch scientists around the world to help us out. Instead of hiring them, we would just consult with them. And the same thing with labs. So instead of building our own manufacturing facility, we would go to a contract manufacturer and ask them to manufacture the drug for us. For instance, the work that we did for our IL-2 program, which we did these studies in monkeys. We went to a huge, world-renowned facility in China and asked them to do the work for us because they have the expertise, they have access to conducting this kind of research. So that's what we do is we go to these facilities that have expertise, whether they are in China, in Europe, or US, or Canada, and tap their expertise and ask them to make whatever drug we design. We ask them to test our drugs and also to manufacture our drugs. So this way we are able to really keep our costs down and bring in scientific people as and when we need them, okay?
And I think one of the things that we teach in the classroom from literally day one, even if they don't understand at the beginning, is market cap, and the students will know how much I pound everybody on market capitalization of a company. And what's important to a lot of the parents and investors and students is that the ultimate goal of a shareholder is for the price to go up. And I think that an issue occurs in a lot of these companies where you've got great so-called management and they've got a great company or a great idea and their market cap is 50 million and it looks great. At the end of the day, they sell the company for $1 billion of market cap, but they also have 1 billion shares outstanding, and they issued their original share at $1, and 10 years later, it's still at $1 when it's sold for $1 billion. And so our job here as portfolio managers, investment bankers, everybody else is to make sure that the actual share price goes up so that the management's on side, and therefore by saying what you've just said, and this is where the students have to know this is the true entrepreneurial side, is understanding costs and be able to get the maximum amount of dollar out of everything that's invested in the company to make that share price go up. And although this is a little wrong, sorry, everybody's shares outstanding is 35 million. I believe it's closer to 47 million.
Correct. Correct.
And so the market cap here would be actually 47 million times $6. Yeah. So we're closer to 300 million Canadian, but still in US terms, that's only $200 million Canadian. And that's a cheap value for a company, as you've just seen here on some of the former slides that we're showing, where you've got Sanofi, buying companies for $4.9 billion, so or 2.5 billion US, which is closer to to 4 billion Canadian. So it's a
Yes.
great job by you, and I say this to the class, and I say this to a lot of people. You rarely see these types of companies and this type of management come along, and when they do, they're the types of investments that people have to make because they're good for the capital side, but they're also good for what they're doing, which is solving a lot of the issues and creating therapies out there that are really necessary. So. I think what we'll do now is we'll get some questions from people. And does anybody want to fire a question off right now? Away. You're more than welcome to speak, students. Go ahead, Shelley. You want to step in? Yeah. Alan, go ahead, Alan.
I just wanted to ask, how do you feel about owning this company? I posted that in the chat already. So.
How do I feel about owning this company? Well, I think I'm really proud of having started the company and being a CEO of this company. And, it's two things, mainly because while we are running a business, we are helping people's lives. What is incredibly satisfying is to hear from a parent or a daughter or a son or a wife and saying that your drug allowed my father, my brother, or my husband to stay longer, to be alive so he could attend and could see his grandchild. It's just so amazing, the satisfaction that you get. It's just quite incredible. So we are a small company, we're just less than 10 people, believe it or not. And this close collaboration is sort of not only satisfying to me, but it's basically everybody in the company is proud to be doing what they do every day. They wake up in the morning, they're really excited about what they will do today and tomorrow. And when you hear and when you have success, especially when you're saving people's lives, can't imagine how much more satisfied you could ever be, where you're sort of helping shareholders, helping patients. That's the best combination.
Sally, want to? Yeah. Yeah, Rex, go ahead, Rex.
So I just want to ask that what is the future direction of Medicenna? Will they join a bigger company or not?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, will we continue to grow as a bigger company? Absolutely. From a market cap perspective, we will continue to grow and build the company's value by focusing on key milestones. What is going to bring shareholders the biggest bang for buck? So that's what we will continue to do. And how do we do it in the best possible manner? So you have an opportunity multiple ways. Do we continue to grow and build the company, or have we gotten to a stage where maybe we should sell our product to a big pharma, a Novartis or Sanofi, for multi-billion dollars, because they have the ability to make this drug available to millions of patients around the world. Medicenna is here in Canada. We can do whatever we can to do the research, but eventually you want to make sure that the drug that you develop gets into patients. And the only way to do it, and the best way to do it, is to collaborate with a big pharma who can take the product along. So we will continue to grow as a company. We'll be hiring more people as we build our pipeline, so we will continue to do that. But we are not likely to build big manufacturing facilities or anything like that. We like the idea of contracting with experts rather than buying and building and managing real estate. Okay.
Thank you.
Question? I know a lot of people always get scared to ask the questions. I'll fire a question out here for you. How did you develop the relationship with Stanford University? I mean, a lot of the students here right now are looking at where their careers can be. And in our class, we're teaching everything from metallurgists to so that they actually see a lot of these things, because what we're finding in the high school is that they're there, and the guidance counselors are 90 years of age, and nobody has any experience. So some people do come out of high school and get lucky. Others spend 5 to 7 years of time value in areas that they had no idea that they wanted to be in, and waste a lot of money and time on the parents' side and their own life. And it'd be great if they had so many more options in front of them to, hey, they may not like them, but at least they've seen what they are and maybe take a shot at them. So I guess that was a two-pronged question: one, Stanford, and helping the kids look at other areas.
Yeah, so, Stanford, the way we came across it was because we were initially building the company in 2013, 2014. We wanted to look for some new assets. As I said, we brought in a drug for brain cancer, but I didn't want to build a company with just one molecule because it would be too risky. And you read the literature and you find that there was a work being done at Stanford University that was published in a very prestigious journal. And we thought, well, this IL-2 molecule is something that I felt had a great potential. This was in 2012, 2013. And I approached the university and they said, well, this molecule was essentially available for license. And we just basically approached the university and said, we are very interested in this molecule. Can you give us the rights to this drug? So that's basically how we sort of keep an eye out. We sort of always look out for these projects and products out there that we feel are exciting, that are likely to be very complementary to what we are doing with our other molecules, so that we are not extending ourselves by acquiring brand new technology that is not related to what we do. Okay,
Right.
So that was the Stanford part. The second question was with respect to the skill sets, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
In terms of, and everybody, I'll tell you what. Ever since I've been a CEO of a biotech company, of Medicenna or other companies, I've worked with chemical engineers. I work with architects to design a plant. I work with civil engineers to design our water purification system in our buildings. I work with real estate agents so that they can help me look for the right kind of labs, the kind of facilities I want to manufacture. I work with pharmacists, with medical doctors. I work with people who are in the insurance space because we need insurance. And we work with lawyers all the time. We work with lawyers because we want to license the technology. We want to collaborate with another university. So we put together agreements and so on. So we're working closely with lawyers. We work with accountants and financiers because we need money and we need somebody to manage our money and stuff like that. So being biotech doesn't mean that you just need to have a science degree or a biotech background. I mean, we work with computer scientists. We work with people who are expertise in artificial intelligence so we can design our clinical trials better. Or we work with statisticians who are able to show which is the best way and how many patients do we need to treat. And so on and on. You basically work with all sorts of people, including people experts in robotics, because you want to do a surgery and you want to put a catheter in the brain to treat a brain tumor, but you end up using a robot to do the job for you. So it's really exciting where we are in biotechnology and the healthcare space. You don't have to be necessarily only like biology or medicine. You could be doing anything, but still involve yourself in biotech. So this is really an exciting space now to be in the healthcare industry. But you can have any kind of background to be in the healthcare industry. Okay?
Yeah. Shall we? Yeah.
Actually, Axel has a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, how to access your medicine is really exciting. Hello. Very design. How to access, is that accessible for the public now? Because you're talking about some treatment to the patient.
Yes. Right. So it's only available right now for patients because it's not approved, it's not marketed, it's not available for sale. We can only make it available when we conduct clinical trials. So we finish our brain tumor clinical trials, so it's no longer available. But when we eventually get this product to the market, it would be available in the future as soon as the FDA approves the drug. So at the moment, we are just doing research, and we continue to do more research. And as we make progress from testing it in animals to testing it in humans, and after we've tested in humans, we keep on increasing the value for the company. We keep on reducing the risk. As soon as we go into humans, we reduce the risk of the project. And as we do more and treat more and more patients, we reduce the risk further. But eventually, we will get into the marketplace. But right now, none of the drugs are available for treating patients. But they will be available in the next 2 to 3 years. And eventually, our other projects, as we build them up, we'll continuously have new compounds coming into the marketplace. So from now to 2 to 3 years is when we'll probably get our first molecule in the marketplace, and then others will follow after that. Okay.
Oh, thank you. It's really a long journey.
It is a long journey, but that's what it is. It's you know, you have to be very patient. You know, you have to be willing to take risks, but at the same time, you know, as long as you always think in your mind, failure is not an option. You know, you just make sure that you work really hard, and even if you have failures, you just learn from those mistakes and your failures, and put yourself up together and keep on going. And that's the key thing is eventually you will make it. But taking a drug to the market does take a lot of money, a lot of risk. But at the same time, as you move from animals to humans, you reduce the risk, and that's how you build value of the company as you reduce the risk. Okay.
Right. Thank you. I don't know if I can have another question.
Sure.
Can we wait for?
Yeah, you got a couple other people? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, I have a question I want to ask. Like for the students currently who study in the University of Pharmacies, Pharmaceutical, what do you suggest? Any suggestion to those students for their future, like job searching or future development?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, the key thing here is if they are studying right now in university or in undergraduate programs, it's always good to specialize. So after they've done an undergraduate degree, if they're interested in the business side, maybe they should go and you know, study and do another business degree or get an MBA, for instance. If they're interested in the legal side, they could probably get sort of go to law school, or they go and do a PhD, and in a process of doing the PhD, you know, really become a specialist, and that really prepares yourself nicely to be, you know, starting your own company. So I think that's important. I'd say nowadays, today, I think 20 years ago, it was okay to have a high school degree. I mean, high school graduation. Today, you know, having a bachelor's is not enough. You need to have a higher education and get to a graduate degree. And I think that opens up a lot more opportunities. And you can get more senior positions in a company if you have a graduate degree. It could be anything. You could, you know, get a graduate degree in journalism and also, you know, talk about life sciences and biotech, but be a journalist at the same time, right? So there's so much you can do. If you have a background in pharmacy, you could start your pharmacy business, but you could continue to get a graduate degree and work for a pharmaceutical company and eventually start your own company, because you always learn when you work for somebody else first, and then, you know, you've learned the basics, and then you can start your own company later on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you got something else?
Mr. Marchand, this is Shelley from Focus Learning. I'm founder and director of Focus Learning. Very, very pleased to have you here.
Thank
And
you.
here in this group, we have a lot of students, and I find that it's hard for students now to find out why they should learn, let's say, chemistry or biology. Why should they learn this? How can they actually apply it in the future? So can we give a purpose to the learning?
Yeah. And I think that's a good question. I think it's really important. You know, the thing is that science is where the future is. And now, mind you, it doesn't mean that if you're not good at science, that you force yourself to do something that you're not going to be good at. There's no reason why you can't be good in English and literature and art, or be an architect, and at the same time make contributions to healthcare and the sciences or the computing world today. So I think very important. I think it's really important that students do what they love, they like, because that's passion in what they learn and they like will make them successful in the future. So, yes, if they ideally, if you're looking at what the future is going to look like, I think this world is getting more and more dependent on science, on technology, on biology, on mathematics. And without those things, it's going to be very difficult to, take a lead role in the scientific arena. So ideally, yes, you want to have your children and yourselves be focused in the sciences. But if there's no interest, doesn't mean that, there's no hope, because as I said, I work with lawyers, accountants, architects, and everyone. They all are part of what a scientific community will always need, right? So I hope that helps.
Yeah. Any other? I mean, we're down to a couple minutes left, but I thought, is there anything else? There's hundreds of questions, but we've never run it. We've spent much time.
Yeah,
Right.
that is some questions that I got before. Now, I just heard that you have a very small team with only more than 10 people.
Yeah.
Students have been asking, when you look for a team member, what kind of qualities do you look for?
Yeah. That's another very good question, because that's the key thing about when you have a small team, you can't afford to have one or two people that are not good, because if two people are not good, that's 25% of the company is unproductive. And that can be really, really bad. So what I do is, of course, I want to look at their credentials, the scientific education and their skill set. That's really important. But I think even more important is their attitude. So attitude is more important than their skills, because if they don't have the aptitude of, let's say, being careful about how they work, how they, able to walk and chew gum, are they able to be multitasking? Are they willing to work hard if there's an emergency? Are they willing to, are they focused on making sure it's the quality of the work they do is high quality? It's got to be excellent work. Because in the pharmaceutical, in the biotech industry, there's no room for error. If you have an error, it could be life-threatening for a patient. So that's really important that I have people who have the skills, but also the right attitude, and they have the passion and they understand what they're doing. It's really important. So those other soft skill sets are really important, other than just their degree. I don't care if they come from Harvard, but if they have a really bad attitude and they're arrogant and they don't have empathy, it's difficult to work with them. So it's tough. So it's really important for me to have smart people, but people who are engaged and also committed to the company, because that's what you need.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that actually brings back to the school education. How do you think school education can help students build up this positive attitude, the attitude to be willing to improve, to work?
Yeah, and it's not, if you look at the normal curriculum, this thing is never taught, right? So, and I think sometimes you need to, provide education that's economic education or social studies and stuff like that, so that children from a very young age are known to work together, to have, you know, sometimes you have these situations where it's very, very competitive and each student is on its own. And, their ability to do very well in by the single individual makes them individuals that are not full, in the sense that they are not able to then interact when they go out in the workforce. So I think those are the type of things that they don't teach at school, and I wish that was taught. And sometimes I think some of that probably, families probably have to invest, and maybe parents have to, provide that kind of knowledge and training as well. But I wish that was done at school, which is unfortunate they don't do it. So this class, for instance, what you got going right now, it's so important. I wish every school had something like this, where they had an hour a week where they are taught about business, about technology from experienced people. And, it's invaluable.
And it's funny because the parents, what we find is that so many of the parents are so busy right now as well that they just don't have the time to sit down and do that. But at the end of the day, the problem is it costs them a lot of money as well, with the student going away, doing something that they didn't really want to do, and then redoing it again. So we talk a lot about time value as well. It's tough.
Yes.
I know we don't have that much time left. Sharon, do you have another question there, I think, and then we can wrap it up? But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Dr. Merchant?
Yes.
Hi. Thanks for your sharing your experience and knowledge. It's really inspired. It's really good to see you were from the employee to the employer. So I do have a question. What is the biggest challenge for you when you become to the entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think two things, because one thing, of course, is in starting a business, you need to first and foremost have a good plan. You got to have a product, a technology that you have, which you hope that it's the right pick. Sometimes it's that gut feeling. You feel that this is the right molecule. I think this is what I need. But I think the big challenge is, how are you going to take this product into the marketplace? How are you going to start a company? And most of it is, how can you raise money? Because eventually you need money. Money is the key to this thing. And if you don't have the financial wherewithal, the most important thing is to have financial support. And then to get financial support, you really need to have a really good story. You have to be able to express the story. You've got to be able to market the story. You have to have belief in your product. Because if you don't have passion, if you're not able to sell your passion, you are not able to attract money. And therefore, if you can't attract money, you can't get started. So those are the key things that I feel that are critical. And even when you're growing the business, even if you've started the business, to keep on growing the business, you will keep on needing more and more investment. And you have to make sure that you're successful and you've made your initial shareholders some money, and then they will have more confidence in you, they'll put more money down the road. So it's a cycle, it's sort of continuous process of delivering, having sound product, being able to market your story, sell your story, and obviously interact with your investors on a regular basis, so you can assure them what you're doing with their money and make sure that you are giving them the best value for their money. Because eventually it's easy for me to spend my own money, but when I have money from others that is not my money, it makes you incredibly worried and careful, because you want to make sure you give your investors who have entrusted money to you the best value, and you're trying the best job as you possibly can. So that's always at the back of your mind, right?
Any questions? Oh, it is lost.
Yeah, there's another question. How do you plan to grow your company?
How do I plan to, sorry?
to
Grow the
grow
company.
your
To grow the company, I think this is what we're doing is we are taking our molecules, each molecule from early stage to animal studies to human studies. And every time we move one step further into humans, the company's value grows very dramatically, okay? And then eventually you partner a program to a big pharma that is going to now fund and take the product to the marketplace. And in return, what we get is the upfront fees, the milestone payments, the royalties when the product gets in the marketplace, and that feeds back into the company and eventually the shareholders, okay? And you can use that money to bring other molecules. So you keep on repeating the process is basically take every molecule and advance them. And you keep on growing the company by having more products in the clinic. The more molecules you have in the clinic, the more valuable your company is. So that's the idea. And of course, with that, you need to hire more people, you need more expertise, you need to bring more advisors and consultants and et cetera, et cetera. But that's what we plan to do.
I know that it's 2 o'clock and you've made my weekend, Mr. Marchand, because the things that you talked about are exactly what I wanted to hear to the kids, and I wouldn't be able to put them better than you put them. And of course, I'd like to thank Ms. Williams for being on the call as CFO. We didn't get to talk about what the CFO responsibilities are, but the kids have learned this. And I'd like to be able to thank some of the other people like Beverly Pang and Peter Tovey and Christina Cameron, who have put this together as well. They've been integral parts of both the company and with I Made It and Focused Learning, and of course with Medicenna. So I don't know if you want to say one final line to leave, but you already made my weekend with what you said, and I think I've written a lot of notes down here, and we'll go over it with the students next week.
Correct. No, thanks. And the thing is, also one important thing about being an entrepreneur is you need family support. Because remember, one thing is that you are risking everything that could severely jeopardize the well-being of your family, because they rely on you for financing, for putting them to school, to university and stuff like that. And that's really important. So that's been very important for me. I think for me, I've been really lucky because my wife has been with me from university until today. So we've been working together as partners for 40 years now. So, so without her support and her willingness to take risks with me, this is where you wouldn't be able to get to. So that's one final thought is, you need support from your parents, your spouse, your brothers, sisters, and your children and stuff like that. It's really important.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the week. I know that you've got so many things going on that probably almost every minute's taken up right now. So I believe that I'll pass it over and say that's it, right, Ms. Stone?
Thank you so much, Mr. Marchand, and I wish you and Medicenna all the best.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And best of luck to all the students, okay, with your futures.
Great. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
Okay,
Thank you,
bye-bye.
Jane.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Thanks so much for being part of it, everybody.
Thank
And see you
you.
next weekend.
Have a great time.
And post anything you want on